Good afternoon or evening or whatever time it is where you are, and welcome to another episode of Downbelow RPG Developer Discussion. My name is Steve.
I'm Ian.
And today Ian is going to talk to us about the mechanics of running away.
Well, the core thing you need to track is how close is the pursuit.
For the record, by the way, we're not talking about necessarily mechanically running away physically. We're talking about in relation to the Fugitives campaign setting we talked about yesterday.
Although really, this core tracker can work for a foot race
Right.
just as well as it can for the more abstract. And if you have an actual chase scene in your game, you may want to have a tracker for that chase scene,
Yep.
as well as, if you are running the fugitive style of game, having a background counter of how far along are we here. And the failures should bring the tracker closer to wherever the PCs are, while successes should bring them further away. I would recommend conceiving of this tracker as a negative number to start with, representing this is how much of the lead, and it gets closer to 0 as the pursuit catches up, but gets further away, creates more of a negative space between the player characters and their pursuit as they widen the lead.
This is one of those places where milestones are very important. If you have in your mind an idea for how long it is until they functionally lose their pursuit, nobody ever completely disappears, but some people can functionally disappear. You should mark that on your tracker.
So, another important thing to look into in this game is not actually a track to keep track of, but it's actually a milestone to start tracks on. When players are running away from some major organization, they will encounter other organizations that could solve the problem for them. The one question that they will have to answer in the course of their flight is, do they accept help from one of these questionable organizations?
Right.
There are no non-questionable organizations in the world of Downbelow.
Or rather, if they are, they're not large enough to successfully offer help. The soup kitchens are probably, well, they're probably legit, but they're not really big enough to offer significant help beyond a place to crash for fugitives.
You might be able to lay low there for a while, but they don't have the power at the level where there's no corruption to help you out. If you go to the mega church organization that runs the soup kitchen, that might be an organization with pull and power to oppose politicians or mega corporations or whatever. But once you get big and have power, there will be corruption. That is one of the constants of the setting. So, start a 0 with positive or negative opinion of the PC's tracker whenever they interact with a major organization. And if the players get to a positive point that matches your milestone with any major organization, then look at possibly transitioning away from the fugitive game style into something appropriate to the organization they've made a relationship with and what that relationship is.
Running away is a fantastic motivation for a game, but unlike most motivations, this one will burn out a lot faster than others because there's only so much tension that someone can take.
I would say that the fugitive game style is inherently limited to no more than 10 game sessions if you run relatively short game sessions.
It's not impossible to go further, but that's a very comfortable number to end on without people feeling like they've either been too ground down or gotten away too easily.
Yeah. There's leeway in either direction, but 10 is basically the point where if you're coming up on it or if you've just gotten there or past it, you should be thinking, okay,
where do we go from here?
This chase has been going on quite a while. What is our end game? So, and basically, if you're at that marker and they haven't been caught, you need to think about, well, the pursuit's probably going to die down because it's becoming, it needs to become less important in the story, or it needs to double down and force a confrontation.
Because either way, once you've been running for too long, it's time to stand and fight. Otherwise, it's kind of boring.
In terms of character types, that is entirely determined by who you determine the people after them are and why they're after them.
Yep.
And honestly, there is less mechanical setup needed for what character type you have in this game than any other.
It's true. Well, almost any other, and we'll get to that in just a moment.
That is true. But as far as we've gone, we've come to the point where in the Fugitive game style, you actually don't need to require the players to have any specific traits unless you have a specific story where you kind of want to narrow the field. But for the game style in general, you don't need to worry about having players have specific traits.
Exactly.
So we'll talk about our final style to introduce you to tomorrow.
Yep. Until then, thank you for falling through the cracks with us.